Which occupations are filled with people who have the worst personality? I used to work in events, and we hired our spaces to people from many industries. By far the worst clients were from fashion. Wanted everything immediately with massive discounts, and they were extremely demanding. A very, "don't you know who I am?" kind of attitude. I understand that to get into that industry, you essentially have to work for free for several years, so only trust fund kids make it. When I worked in IT for a school district, I had a teacher at one of my assigned schools, who worked in the fashion industry previously in California, and had relocated to Tennessee. He'd put in work order tickets, and be upset when I wasn't able to resolve his issues, as soon as he liked. I had to sit him down and explain to him nicely, that this was a completely different field, and the world, as well as my work, didn't revolve around him and his demands. He seemed to get the message, and said, he was trying to break the habit, but it was going to be an adjustment. I told him, if he continued to be patient with me, then I'd continue to be patient with him. Investment banking, in particular the successful types, can be difficult. Worked in support roles in IB for 20+ years. One story will suffice. I got a call from a banker, who asked me to come into the office, on a day when the entire city was shut down, because of the Rodney King riots. I refused, and then I called everyone on my crew and ordered them to also refuse, if or when he should call them. He did call them. Every single one. I've worked a lot, as a software engineer developing and supporting products used by large banks. There is this, I'm going to test my own influence, by throwing my weight around, and asking for everything under the sun, to the point where, I tire everyone else out, and they lose the willingness or ability, to say no, and push back. So annoying and toxic. Just reaching out everywhere looking for a weak point, someone they can exploit and leverage, without any regard for professional courtesy, social convention, or good faith negotiation. Politics. It's like a magnet for power-hungry egos, and backstabbing schemers. Can't trust half of them, as far as you can throw him. The Douglas Adams observation, will stand the test of eternity. The major problem, one of the major problems, for there are several, one of the many major problems with governing people is, that of whom you get to do it, or rather of who manages to get people to let them do it to them. To summarize, it is a well-known fact, that those people, who must want to rule people are, ipso facto, those least suited to do it. To summarize the summary, anyone who is capable of getting themselves made president, should on no account be allowed, to do the job. This is 100% true. Every solitary single successful politician is manipulative by definition, otherwise they cannot have the masses like them so much. I didn't get this till I was older and experienced, meeting different people and realized how much people can BS and lie, to get things. Now I see the younger generations just fall for it. It's just a repeating cycle. From Kennedy, to Reagan, to Obama, to Justin Trudeau, to Trump. They're all liars and manipulators, which is why we are always disappointed afterwards. They have to be, to become the top leader. Administrators in public schools. Ask some teachers you know. Edit, wow, did not expect so many, to agree with me. My dad is a teacher who is thankfully about to retire. 40 years as a teacher. The bullshit he has been put through, by administration, is absolutely unreal. And my dad, God love him, is a peaceful man, and a good teacher, who actually cares about his students. And he has taken it in the ass from them, for 40 years. Absolutely absurd. Same here. My mom is about to retire, as a public elementary school teacher, after 35 years. She loved the kids and had a great record, won a number of teaching awards, etc. But that never stopped the administration from trying to screw her every chance they got, and in her opinion, it's only getting worse, for the next generation of teachers. Corporate executives have the highest rate of psychopathy. Yup. CEOs, financiers, lawyers. Sociopaths excel in those jobs, because they often lack empathy, and don't feel bad about screwing other people over. Added to say, I was not implying that all CEOs, financiers, or lawyers are sociopaths, but that you have a higher likelihood of encountering a sociopath in those fields versus others. Reminds me of that one researcher who was studying psychopathy and found out his brain was off the charts. Construction can get pretty bad. Bosses never took a management class. Everybody's miserable. Grown men fighting like schoolgirls. The most interesting night I've ever had doing manual labor was watching two guys fight while wielding nail guns. Seeing them swing around, trying to decide if they wanted to use their free hand to punch, or hold the safety back on their nail guns, was both highly entertaining and incredibly scary. If they haven't disabled the safety with baling wire, they aren't real construction workers. TSA agents are usually the worst mix of surly and dumb. Can confirm. A TSA agent confiscated my asthma inhalers because a real asthmatic would have more than 2 on their person. Dude has watched too many Hollywood films where the greasy nerd sucks on his inhaler whenever he feels slightly nervous. As a marketer, marketing. I'm an introverted person, and the amount of loud people who think they know it all in this profession is crazy. I went on a couple of dates with a guy in marketing, and he was so holier than thou it drove me insane. He kept making me justify my choices in music, TV, and my decision to use military time on my phone, and would talk to me like I was stupid if I didn't have good enough arguments prepared, which I did not. Because I wasn't expecting to have to defend myself that much on a date. It was bizarre. People in positions of minimal power. For example, jobs that require little education, aren't paid well, but give just enough power over people to potentially ruin their day. Airport security, parking attendant, mall security, ticket inspectors, all professions filled with frustrated souls who take out their frustrations on others. When I was a kid, such a person was awful to me in public. I was really upset about it. My dad took me aside and said, people like them have so little power in their lives, so they use that power over other people to make themselves feel better. I've had to recall that lesson many times. I worked in union construction during the pandemic and a bit after. I have never seen a more miserable group of people making 6 figures in my life. How the hell are you making $110,000 a year, amazing benefits, and you are still missing front teeth? In my field of study, economics, the stereotype would want that the worst people end up in finance or real estate. The best ones in IT. I work in IT. Many of us started off as decent folk, but we grow to hate everyone. Worked IT at a hospital. Why do you eat at your desk every day? Because if I eat in the cafeteria, I have 12 favors to do after I eat by people that don't feel like calling the help desk and putting a ticket in. I used to work for a social service agency, and I was shocked by how nasty my co-workers were. The work culture was plain mean. I was involved with the prevention committee, and I was sort of dismissed and talked down to because I had attempted before, and at one point, I was made fun of for crying during a meeting after another committee member said something like, "Those people are screwed up." The comments about the adults didn't faze me so much, but the comments about kids did, because at that age, I thought that adults knew everything, and I also felt isolated and didn't know anyone else who was dealing with that. I'm now doing inner child work and have a support system to deal with it. Real estate agent. They think they are celebrities and high society. They do. But why though? The ones I know say they work so hard, grind, no days off. Like come on, if you work on a Sunday, you're standing in a house for 2 hours. The worst one I know of has to document everything and post it on all her socials. Like a video driving to a town 30 minutes away, saying, "Nothing I won't do for my clients." Like bruh, it's a 30 minutes drive. That's just a normal commute for a lot of people. She even videos her husband doing volunteer work, with captions like, "Make time for volunteering, make a difference." Her husband has time to volunteer because he's unemployed. Also, people who really need one to make a difference don't volunteer once and take 15 videos and pictures and post them with inspirational quotes. Edit, realtors are my biggest pet peeve. There's plenty of good ones who know it's just a job. But there's a lot of young ones who think they're on selling sunset. You got no degree. You walk through houses. You don't sell them. They sell themselves. You don't own a business. You're not a boss. YTF, do realtors get so much commission, again? HR. It's a position, virtually engineered for Karens. A privately owned company can keep them in check, because the owner can tell them to get effed. But I've been in 2 companies that transitioned to employee-owned with board governance. With no one person in charge, policy becomes the single point of control. That is when HR becomes the de facto dictatorship, because they can hold up a binder to a vice president and say, "Everyone's hands are tied." Watched it with my own eyes. The VP lost. I will strictly avoid corporate jobs, unless as a last resort, because those environments are soul-crushing. These days just be a subcontractor. I've noticed that academia tends to draw in people who are, how should I say, heavy? Some great personalities too, but also people who could, how should I say this, not hold a job anywhere else, probably? Who don't have that many friends in real life, maybe? I love my studies, but having worked as a research assistant, and knowing people who work in administrative jobs at universities, I decided I never want to get into that field. Just too much snobbery, elitism, hierarchies, etc. Insurance. The highest profit is achieved by agents who convince people to take the highest possible premium, often selling them things they don't need. Adjusters who deny as many claims as possible, with many examples of companies that initially deny all claims. Systems that prevent customers from doing anything about the above. There's no way to run this business ethically, and it shows. I'm gonna add one myself, I guess. According to my friend, who works at a theater, some people there are pretty arrogant, and even narcissistic. One that also works as a dance teacher, even physically abused his students. I worked in theater, TV, and film for many years, still do from time to time, and I also went to college for it. I found that while there are a lot of narcissists in the arts, there's relatively few malignant narcissists, compared to the other fields I've worked in. Cough, cough, New York City, commercial real estate, cough, cough. Best example, I worked for Law & Order for a while, across all of their shows. They do not allow behavior from anyone. If you're in a hole, you're gone. Computer programmer, and I say this, as one. Some of us are cool, I hope that's me too, and to be honest, the chill ones tend to be better at their jobs. But a lot of them have this weird ego about writing code. It's like they think that being able to write code is the most impossibly difficult technical skill in the universe, and by doing it, they are the smartest people in the world. They look down on everyone, without their specific skill set, as hopeless morons, who couldn't possibly comprehend their astonishing intellects. I like what I do. I think I'm good at it. But I also think that there are many professions more difficult and complicated than what I do, and I don't think that anyone who can't do what I do must be an idiot. I find that there is a lot of mental exhaustion in that job. Rewarding with the pay, but like the egos that feel like their IQ is like 160 plus, but they're the normal average person, it's just weird AF. Also, women have it incredibly difficult in this field. I've never witnessed so much misogyny as when a female developer joins the team. They are constantly forced to prove themselves or defend their code, where men in the same position are not. I'm going to get downvotes. Nursing. I say this every chance I get, there's a direct parallel between women who become nurses and men who become cops. Underrated comment, mean girl to nurse pipeline is very real. I've had some awesome nurses that were probably over 45, but otherwise, I hate having a chronic illness because of them, lol. And my sister is a nurse and she's never been accused of having a pleasant personality, or caring about others, either. Kitchens. We're all a holes at work. LOL. One of the highest rates of drug, alcohol or other addiction problems. Generally antisocial towards the general public. Lots of ex-cons. We're basically motorcycle, or pirate gangs, thrust into roles in normal society. LOL. Surprised I didn't see this higher up. I love working in a kitchen, but it is filled with miserable holes, who shouldn't be seen by the public. Also surprised, cops isn't on here more. How many bootlickers we got, LOL. I have been in 3 long-term relationships, 2 of which were a head chef of a fine dining place, and the other was a sous chef of an equally as nice place. After those toxic relationships, I swore I'd never date another chef again. Police departments, they are full of the absolutely last people who should be trusted with police powers. They are full of racists, white nationalists, fascists with low IQs, because they screen out the intelligent ones before they ever make it to the academy. Almost every police department in the country is full of corrupt cops who beat and murder suspects and then cover for each other. Moderators in online community. Their job is basically accusing users of posting what the mods also do. I've been a mod for a smaller, not Reddit, gaming community for over a decade now. For context, we're much smaller, but a decade ago, we were hella busy. It was great to be able to enforce the rules, so a-holes got in trouble or banned. Absolutely was that amazing. Not having moderation, or lax moderation killed communities, and let crazy a-hole behavior thrive. They are very needed in online communities. That said, it did attract power-hungry people, like any other position. A moderation team, that can take on feedback and prune itself, is valuable. If they can and won't, you're effed, and it'll be overwhelmed by those people, who are a-holes, but moderate others for doing the same thing. I firmly believe a lot of Reddit needs heavier moderation, but it doesn't happen, nor do they get paid, so, it just attracts those who want the power over people. Cold caller. You really have to not give a F about absolutely anything, to handle the job. Unfortunately, this means, people with zero self-awareness, or tact, often thrive here. I was unemployed and needed money badly, so, applied to a position and got in. I lasted one shift. The sheer amount of non-stop automated calling, plus verbal abuse, was too hard for me. On my first day, the rest of the cold call team were loudly and plainly discussing gross topics. I'll never forget meeting this woman, who then immediately went on to talk about her vaginal discharge. She even used the word discharge, LOL, with the team before our shift started. Not every cold caller is this way, of course. Some people are probably just really great at compartmentalizing work/life. But every single one in that office was nasty. Correctional officers. 35 COs, facing possible criminal charges, in Kentucky, for our prisoners, dealing drugs, etc., etc. The mugshots make them look like the people inside the prisons, where they will soon be inmates. In my area, there is a recent ad from the corrections facility, about how they aren't bad people, and need new people to apply. Funny enough, once I had a corrections officer go in an ego trip on me, for not serving him after close. He went on how he is tough, and shouldn't be messed with. Makes me feel bad, for the people he is in charge of. Truck drivers. I work with a lot of them, and I have heard some of the most vile things from truck driver mouths. Things like, castrating every prisoner, practicing eugenics, crushing people on the highway who get in their way, and general right-wing talking points, turned up to 11. All things said to me by truck drivers I've just met. Most also don't clean up after themselves, too. You ever dealt with an architect? Art Vandelay for the win. A lot of people in design are insufferable. Sure, good design involves finding what will best suit the end user's needs, but often the designer's ego gets so wrapped up in their design that they refuse to change course, despite everyone hating it, and despite any evidence that the design is fundamentally not good at meeting user needs. It's like every designer, read that Henry Ford quote, about how if he'd asked what people wanted, they would have said, faster horses, and decided that this means that their design is always correct, even if people don't like it. And if they don't like it, they are just holding back forward progress, or something like that. Anything that involves dogs. Dog people are effing crazy. Former dog trainer, and doggy daycare supervisor. Some of the clients had unrealistic standards and expectations. One woman showed me the right way to clean her dog after playtime. One family had a whole wing of their house for just their dog, but don't let the dog in the wrong part of the house. Oh my god. And then you get the other end of the spectrum, where clients keep their dog in a crate for the whole day, and then ask you put them back into their crate after their services. Don't have a dog if you're gonna lock it up all day. WTF. From my own personal experience, senior managers in education settings. Mainly because they all act like they're high and mighty, because they're working to help the young people, while simultaneously not giving a shit about the students, and making decisions which hinder them, because they only care about making themselves look good. I don't like top management, at the best of times, but don't try and hide behind holier-than-thou bullshit and hinder kids' education, all while being a narcissist. Police officers, for sure. Some of the worst attitudes I have ever seen from a person have been from cops. You don't even have to be doing anything wrong. I was stopped a while ago, while walking the 2 blocks from my home to the convenience store to get snacks, because I fit the description of someone who was selling weed. I asked one of the officers for this alleged description, and he shoved me to the ground, yelling that, when a cop tells you to do something, you do it. I live in a small town, and I am a guy with 3-foot long hair. There aren't a lot of people in my town who fit the same description as me. Military. There's some who are genuinely great bosses and managers. But then you have the careerists, who value looking good to their bosses at all costs. It's downright ridiculous, the lengths they're willing to go to do so. Even worked with some who brag about working on leave and how much time they've spent away from their family. It's not the flex they think it is. Pharmacist. All that education to still be treated like a glorified cashier that always gets stuck working evenings and weekends. Plus a decent amount of customers are sick and cranky. It seems every pharmacist I come across has run out of Fs a long time ago. Musicians, not hobbyists, or volunteers in a choir, or something. But actual, proper paid classic musicians. The kind who turn their nose up at applause, because it's not etiquette at a concert. Or the kind who can't connect with someone new starting out, and look down on them for trying to learn. Or scoff at musicians with subpar or more financially friendly instruments, and refuse to teach them. The kind who scoff at mistakes and put others down for imperfect performance or technical skills, while simultaneously Googling, "How can I improv better?" and also pick flaws in themselves every 2 seconds. The ones who don't even consider any other genre to be music. Engineers. This was my first thought. As a former engineer who moved into marketing, engineers, especially older ones, tend to be very full of themselves and never needed to learn any soft professional skills, because their specific technical skill set is so valuable that even the worst of holes can get hired anywhere and keep job security. Many of them find their niche and become so entrenched that they get lazy and unhelpful until finally retire, taking their expertise with them and leaving younger engineers to scramble to fill the knowledge gap. Now that I'm in a marketing role, I find many engineers are incredibly dismissive of anyone not in a technical role, and I have to convince them that I'm worth their time. They probably think they could run the company on their own, and don't see the value in working with others. Many of them have libertarian political views, because of their myopic worldview, and blew off any humanities or ethics classes they ever had to take, hence, all the engineers who thrive in the defense industry. They're not as bad as politicians, or salespeople, or CEOs of course, and I've met a ton of great engineers, who were also great, well-rounded people, but engineering attracts a specific type of person that can be insufferable. Look no further than their idol, Elon Musk.